two dirty painters to multiple seven-figure business owners. I'm Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
And I'll be giving you guys the insider secrets to take your trades business to the next level.
From crazy stories to proven strategies, get ready to supercharge your business with us.
Welcome to the Dirty Painters Podcast.
So this episode was requested, and today we will be giving you all the tips and tricks of how to build a strong team of employees. We will cover hiring practices, incentivization, and retention. Let's get right into it.
All right. What's the biggest objection that we hear from painting business owners?
We can't find good help.
I'm like, have you even looked? Or do you have a hiring process? Or how are you looking for those guys? Do you just go out on the street and then pick up somebody like, hey, here's a brush and a paint t-shirt and then come paint? What are your hiring processes? But yeah, we hear that all the time, all the fucking time, anywhere, any market, 50 states across the country, different countries. They cannot find good help. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how you can build a good hiring process, because hiring is like getting leads, getting customers to pay you to paint their houses. It's the same. Or a good analogy, I was on the phone with this guy on a consulting call the other day. I was like, are you married? And he's like, yeah, I am married. I'm like, did you decide you're going to marry your wife on the first date? And he was like, no. I'm like, it's the same with employees, subcontractors, crews, salespeople, managers. I'm like, you can't decide right away that you're going to marry them. So you have to go through a process. You have to date them a little bit. And then you have to go through a lot of them. And then decide like they're a good fit. Give a little bit rundown of how we used to do this. Like back in the day. When we got over the one with work and...
We would just ask the basic questions like, can you brush and roll? Okay. Can you prep? Okay, that's it. Okay, we'll get you on the job sites. Yeah. And then they never worked out. We were always those people that were complaining, oh man, we can't find good guys. Like everybody that we hire, they're fucking trash or whatever. And that's because we didn't have a hiring process.
Tell that story that you were telling in the car the other day that we're going to dinner, that you're like, that was a turning point when we decided, you know what, like, let's fucking move to Florida.
Oh, so cold winter in Michigan. It was a very bad snow day. 6,000 square foot, full interior, like high ceilings, like almost 30 feet high ceilings. And then we had 5 people scheduled to come in. And then none of them came because it was a bad snow day. It was just me and him. And we're in this master bathroom thinking to ourselves, we were prepping. And we just look up at each other and we're like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
Like...
I'm like, we can't find any good help. I went on a rant with Karmelo and got like, yeah, everybody sucks. We were those people. We were them. Like, we were the people who were complaining all the time that we couldn't find good help. And I'm not going to regret being that person because it made us move to Florida. And look at us now. We're fucking crushing it down here. And it's not like we're doing bad in Michigan, but our processes definitely have gotten way better. The more the business grew down in Florida, the more we grew as business owners. But yeah, that was a big struggle for us. It's like, oh, we can't find any good help, rely on them, nothing.
And then one of the reasons one of them called out was like, oh, I slept in. In.
Fucking Cody. I remember that. I'm like, this motherfucker.
I slept in.
But I get it. You know, it was snowing and he
was comfortable in his blanket. The blanket was probably too heavy for him to lift it up.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever. But yeah, that was a turning point where like, okay, this sucks. Let's get the fuck out of here. Let's figure it out how we're going to duplicate. Or we're like, I remember I was like, even if we make less money, let's just fucking get out of this cold weather. People are not as motivated to go to work when it's snowing outside.
And it's true. It's very psychological, the weather.
Yeah. Anyways, moving forward, but the more we grew our business, the more help we needed, not just in painting, but in other things like sales, managers,
marketing,
a lot of things. So we started by building our hiring process as well with the sales and marketing, because hiring is very important, I think. I think it's the most important part when you're trying to grow a business, because you can only do certain things by yourself to a certain capacity. So we started creating our hiring practices. And the first thing is we started creating, like we have written down here, define clear job roles. We started breaking down our crews from helpers to painters to spray guys, to
Master painter,
master painters,
crew leader.
crew leader. So that was our first process that we created. I'm like, okay, what are the responsibilities and the roles of the helper? Sand,
Taping,
taping,
cleanup,
cleanup, all this stuff that a helper does. Then what are the responsibilities of a painter?
filling, caulking,
Yeah, basing, filling, caulking, drywall patches, maybe rolling,
brushing, or cutting.
cutting, taping, finish colors so we can get straight lines. What are the responsibilities of a master painter?
Same skills as the painter, but
And
cabinet
hand, yeah.
refinishing, fine finishes.
Razor sharp lines, skim coating, feathering and repairs, like all the fine detail stuff. And then the sprayers. We have guys that they only spray. What are their job responsibilities? They're just there to make sure they get the glass coating on anything that they're painting. They make sure the surface is prepared right. They make sure they know how to operate the pumps because
And maintain them.
and maintain them. Me and Carmelo can't be at every single job site to troubleshoot a pump. Like they have to know how to do that themselves, so the job keeps going. And then we have the crew leaders, who's like the team captain, who's has good managerial skills, can communicate with the customer, can take a scope of work and execute it, and then make sure those guys are following their job responsibilities and then living up to the roles. So that was the step number one. I'm like, okay, we have to break down our team members. And then we started doing the pre-screening process. We started adjusting our ads. We started adding more requirements. We want to just post now, oh, looking for a painter. Now we're like, oh, we're looking for a spray finisher. We're looking for a cabinet finisher. We're looking for a helper. And then we will break down all the responsibilities on the ad. That way, before they even reached out to us, they knew what they were reaching out for. So we started treating it more like a business. In the corporate world, you go on Indeed and you look at job applications.
They have the qualification and requirements thing.
Yeah. And we started even asking people for resumes, believe it or not. I mean, I'm not looking for something fancy, just a one-page resume that tells me, oh, I worked for this guy. Or when they don't have a resume, I'm like, write me an essay. I'll be like, write me a one-page essay of your past experience, what you've done, who you worked for, and just give me a little rundown of why should I consider you bringing me within my organization. And I think that it was a huge transition from just running making a post on Indeed, Craigslist, whatever we're looking, Facebook Marketplace, running an Instagram ad. To be like, oh, open interview. I used to do that a lot. Remember? I'd be like, oh, open interviews. Come at the job site. We'll try you out. That didn't work out at all. The retention rate on that was horrible. All these people showing up, and you had to have cash to pay them at the end of the day, or because you don't want to put them on the books yet. It didn't work out. Especially when I was doing open interviews. I remember in the shop in Michigan, I would have like 20 people show up. I'm like, okay, how the fuck are we doing this now? And then I was like, okay, this is not working. Let's go back on the drawing board and make sure we're pre-screening those guys the same way that we're pre-screening leads when they come in. Are they a good prospect? Do they meet our requirements? What are they looking to get done? It's the same thing with hiring. Then a very important thing that Karmelo created was he outlined and created our SOPs. We created a company culture. We created these are the guidelines that when you work for Olympian, when you work under our brand name, this is what you follow, and this is how we do things. And these are non-negotiables. For example, our biggest non-negotiable, we always cover the floors. No matter what we're doing, the floors are 100% covered. Because we would get guys that would come in, and before we had those SOPs that Carmelo created, and then, they would run like tarps and they would do things, and we would run into a lot of issues. And that was our fault. It was not their fault. That's how they were doing things before. And we didn't set that expectation. Like, hey, when you were in an Olympian job site, first thing that we do in an interior is cover the floors. And then that initiated the whole hiring process as well by creating business processes. And now every time we interview somebody, it might be a helper, it might be anything. Like, hey, this is how we do things. And we run them through the whole process. This is our interior process. This is our exterior process. This is our cabinet process. What do you think about it? And then they read it. We have it in writing. We have it in PDFs. We email it to them. Uh, we give all that information out before we even put them on the job site. So now how we do the screening process. Most of our candidates come because of our brand recognition. We get a lot of messages every day from people like, oh, are you hiring? Are you looking to add to your team? Are you hiring subcontractors? Are you hiring crews? So what I do is first I ask for the resume or the one essay page. If they don't have it, I'm like, okay, break down all your experience, break down all this, uh, your equipment, what kind of equipment. That's very important too, especially when you're doing performance-based subcontracting. You have to know what equipment they have. So on a pre-screening with candidates, we make sure they meet all the requirements. So for example, when we're hiring an exterior crew, we want to make sure they can hold ladders, right? We want to make sure they have a sufficient pump that can spray exterior coatings. You can't go and paint an exterior with a GX19.
Yeah, the thicker coatings.
Yeah, like it won't push it out. Your little pump will burn out. We'll make sure they can operate and work on ladders. We asked, if especially if it's a sub crew, we asked to see past jobs. We asked to see some of their work. Or a lot of times when they reach out to us, so like they're working, then they're looking for more work. I'm like, hey, do you have any active job sites that I can stop by and take a look how you do things? That's another thing that we're doing as well, especially when we're in heat and then we need to add more crews to keep up with the work. Me or Carmelo will start going and visiting those guys at their job sites to make sure they're a good fit, see how the job site is organized, see how they operate, see the quality of the work. And another thing that I really pay attention to is see how clean their job site is. Do you go there and there's like cans everywhere, cigarette butts, I don't know, a messy job site? Or do you go there and they have a workstation, their garbage is picked up, everything is organized, it's not a hot mess. So those are things that I look for. So the sequence is easy. They reach out to us, we ask for this information, we make sure they qualify with all our requirements. And we're like, okay, do you have 15 minutes to jump on a call? And then on that phone call, I'll ask them certain questions. I'll be like, okay, my biggest question is like, why are you a painter? That's a question that they've never been asked for. And then you'll get different answers. They'll be like, oh, I want to pay my bills. I want to grow. Most of them, like, I'm just looking to make money. A lot of them that we get is like, oh, I'm doing this part time, like now temporary, so I can branch out and do something else. So you have to ask those questions to understand where they want to go in their career. And next thing you ask them, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? That's a very important question that I ask on the phone as well, because I want to identify if that guy is a good prospect for me and Carmelo and our team to invest time with. What are their 5 year goals? What is the 1 year goal? Where do they want to go? Are they looking to grow? Are they looking to stay stagnant? Do they just want to be a painter? Those are things that you need to identify before you even have them come out to your office and do an in-person interview. Because if they're like, oh yeah, I'm just doing this part-time so I can go, I don't know, something random, get me out of college or start a restaurant or open a food truck or I don't know, something that doesn't tie in with being a painter, then that's not a good prospect for us because we invest a lot of time in training those guys. And then if I'm going to invest 2 weeks to get you up to standard, I expect to get at least a year's worth of work out of you because at training, we spend a lot of time putting those systems together and we want to get an ROI. So those are the questions that you need to ask to qualify people like, hey, are these guys long-term? Is there potential for these guys to be long-term? Or are these guys trying to make a quick buck and move on to the next? Because again, the thing is to build long-term relationship with your employees, with your subcontractors, with the people that you bring within your organization, because you invest a lot of time in training into them. Ask them what their goals are. Ask them why they reached out to you. What made them reach out to your company? Is it just because they need work or is it because they saw something else? Because a lot of times people reach out, a lot of painters see our ads and then they reach out like, oh, we like the way that you do things. You guys seem like you do good work. You seem like you're a legit company. that's a good answer. Or if they're like, oh, I just reached out, I went on Google and I called the first 30 companies that came up because I need work, then I'm like, okay, this might not be worth our time to spend because we're looking for long-term relationships. Ask those pre-screening questions, and then the next sequence, if you like the answers that they gave you, like, okay, that all sounds good, man. When are you available to stop by our office to conduct a formal interview? And then in the interview, be like, make sure you bring me your general liability, your workman's comp or your workman's comp exemption, your company structure. If you're a subcontractor or if you're an employee, obviously you have to make sure they have all the paperwork in line, like
Social Security.
social security, driver's ID, a running car, which is very common for people not to have a friggin' reliable transportation. That's another question that you need to ask on the pre-screening interview. Do you have reliable transportation? If you're like, yeah, my girlfriend will drop me off and pick me up, or my mom, or that's not a good candidate, guys. You cannot rely. They need to have reliable transportation. Be like, hey, because we don't give company cars to everybody. If you're like, hey, we have to be at this job site at 8 o'clock, and then his girlfriend has to drop him off at the shop, and then somebody has to pick him up to take him to the job site, that's not good.
Yeah, we're not Uber.
We're not Uber, but also throws up the flow.
Or sometimes they can't take them and then
Yeah.
they just don't come to work. It
Yeah.
just throws off like, hey, I had you scheduled here. And then my plans were if I had this many guys, I could get this much done. Now the other guys are going to take that load and
Yeah.
it's not going to.
So very important, have reliable transportation. Are you willing to drive? How far are you willing to drive? Because a lot of times you're like, oh, I don't drive 15 miles further than my house. So those are things that you need to identify prior to bringing somebody on board. Because we run so many times where like we would just bring just anybody and then their car would break down or they didn't have reliable transportation. I can remember one time that guy had to Uber at every job site and it just doesn't operate well. It's not smooth. The flow of the work gets messed up. Your schedule gets backed up because if two painters don't show up and you had planned for the job to have four painters there, then your production is cut in half. And then you get backed up, your schedule gets backed up. It brings a lot of issues. So yeah, reliable transportation is very important. And then once they get through that pre-screening, the 15-minute phone call, they come to the shop. And then another thing that I really pay attention to is how they show up to the shop. It's do they come clean, like
Clean cut, nice
clean
clothes,
cut? Are they
doesn't
presentable?
smell.
Do they smell like I've done hundreds of interviews. I've had people smelling alcohol coming to the to the interview. I'm like, okay, this guy is definitely not gonna work. He sounded good on the phone, but came smelling like I could smell booze from like me and Carmelo are sitting about 6 feet apart now. I could smell. That's how I was sitting with the guy. I could smell the alcohol in his breath. Or when they smell like cigarettes because a smoker, they'll smoke in the car, they'll smoke anywhere. They have that cigarette smell with them everywhere they go. So that's another thing that you need to like. For us, for example, we don't hire people who smoke cigs because we run into the issue of them not only taking smoke breaks. I'm not really big into like they can take a smoke break. Okay, but my biggest concern is throwing cigarette butts into an active job site, and the customers start complaining. That's why if you go into any other job sites, nobody's smoking. And it's not because of the smoke breaks that they're going to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's because we want to maintain a clean job site and we want to maintain the high-end, presentable brand that we push to our customers.
Because they may have the technical skills, but they also need to be a good cultural fit for your business too. Mm-hmm. And if they're not willing to adapt to that culture, then they're not really a good candidate, is what I would say.
Exactly. They curse out a lot. That's not a good fit for us. I mean, we curse out too, but when you're at a customer's house, you have to respect his house. You can't be cursing out and talking, speaking like you're at the bar or with your boys hanging out. So that's another thing that you can pick up on on initial phone call. You can pick up on the tonality. You can pick up on how they're talking to you. That's those are things that the more interviews you do, the more seasoned you're gonna become, and the more experience you're gonna become to identify good fits and bad fits. And then we get to the practical tests or question to assess paint skills and attention to detail. So Carmelo is really good at doing that. He'll ask them, especially when he interviews most of the cabinet finishers. So he'll ask them questions because we get people like, yeah, I know how to spray, I know how to do cabinets, I know how to do this. I've used 2K polyurethanes before. So I'm like, okay, I'll have you with my brother who does all the training for our cabinet finishers. Let's see.
How would you fill a hole if we have
Yeah.
to drill new holes and then we have to fill the old ones?
Yeah.
That really tells a lot.
Yeah.
That's a question I really like to ask. Or do you caulk the panels?
Yeah.
Some people do.
Yeah.
Like, no,
We don't
we,
caulk
we, we
panels.
don't do that.
And then you ask them why do they know why we don't do it? And then a really good finisher, they'll know, like, hey, when you caulk a cabinet panel, eventually it'll crack, it'll expand because the cabinet shifts. Or another question, when they tell me they have experience with 2K polyurethanes, I'm like, okay, which ones? And then if they have experience, they'll tell you which ones. They'll know the ratios, they know the pot life, they'll know what the mixing ratios are, they know how to mix it, they'll have all the proper tools, they'll know the basic math, 10% catalyzed and all that. If they don't know any 2K polyurethane brand, chances are they never used a 2K polyurethane.
Or if they name one out, because we've used all of them,
Yep.
they've gone through our stress test, we will ask them specific questions. Like,
Yep.
this one has a little bit of a hard time with hang time. How do you combat that? What do you do with it?
Or let's say they used X 2K polyurethane. I'm like, okay, what's the average dry time on it? Because if you're an experienced finisher, you know that. Because you're sitting at the shop waiting for things to dry. So you should know the dry time.
Or at the kitchen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or a question I like asking when I'm interviewing exterior crews is, what's the difference between Loxone XP solid body and then what's the difference?
The clear sealer.
The clear sealer. If they don't know that, and I'm like, okay, they're not very proficient in exterior coatings. Or do you spray in back roll or you just leave it sprayed on? And
That's for stucco and porous surfaces.
I'm like, when you're painting a stucco home, do you just spray it or do you back roll it? And like, oh, sometimes I'll back roll, sometimes I'll just spray it. I'm like, okay.
Or spray and back roll is 2 coats, so that's how I do my 2 coats.
Like, I'm like, okay, this guy, if I bring him on board, he's probably gonna try and cut corners. He's gonna leave all my stucco surfaces unback rolled. It's gonna look like shit. He's gonna ruin my personal guarantee and warranty. So I'm like, okay, this guy might not be a good candidate. Or maybe I'll try him on something small to see how he does. That way I eliminate the risk. Or if he fucks it up, I can just send another crew to fix it. So those are technical questions that we always ask experienced people who come on board. We don't hire anymore as much people that have like zero experience. We used to have like our training programs and the internships and all that. It's very time consuming, and then a lot of people are not meant for that industry, and they usually don't work out. We spend time training people with zero experience. It was a waste of time. None of them are around. Just that. We've probably done like 30, 40 of them. Like, yeah, we'll train you. We'll give you the opportunity to build a new career in the new industry. Those guys didn't work out. That's why now you have to have at least construction experience. At least you know how to use a broom. At least I remember that one time that dad was begging me to bring that guy on board. Remember the guy from Greece that we're doing the guy that was selling Toyota's house, the black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad's like, please bring this guy. He used to have a coffee shop in Greece and all that. He just moved here. He's looking for work. He's struggling. I'm like, okay, dad, I'll fucking bring him. I'm like, let's get him to a job site. He's like, yeah, he'll be good. He'll be a good helper.
He didn't know how to hold a broom.
He didn't know how to fucking hold a broom. I'm like, dude, how the fuck did you keep your coffee shop clean? You never broomed or mopped your coffee shop? I'm like, what kind of coffee shop was that? Like, you never kept it clean? He didn't know how to hold a broom. I was like, bro, I feel bad, man. I'll pay you for the day. I'll give you $200 for the day, but you're not a good fit because we don't have time to train you. Like, we need people who at least can be useful, like clean the job site, pick up the trash. That guy was horrible. And I felt bad because he just moved to the country and all that. I was like, man, it's not a good fit for us because we'll have to spend so much time training. And I think you're better off just going and doing something that you like or you enjoy. I might go make coffees at Starbucks. I mean, that's what he did in Greece. I might go be a barista. Anyway, so yeah, now we don't hire people anymore who don't have any experience at all. It's very time consuming, and we want to move fast. Our organization is growing very fast, so we want to hire good candidates and good killers. When you're starting out in the beginning, you can especially if you're on the field, you can hire somebody for like $15 an hour, and then maybe use them for 2 months, 3 months, and let them see how they work, see if they're picking up. But at this point where me and Carmelo are not active at job sites, my guys get pissed. I'm like, the fuck are you bringing this guy here and he doesn't even know how to hold a broom? And then I get it, like, because our teams, they all have their dedicated roles. Then our teams, our crew leaders are not meant to train guys. They're just there to make sure the job is getting performed at a certain quality level that we expect, and then it's getting performed at a certain timeline. They can't just be babysitting people and be like, hey, this is how you hold a brush, this is how you tape and all that. It doesn't work well. And we tried it, and then our crew leaders hated it. So it creates a lot of friction with our crews. They're like, okay, these guys are wasting our time, or they're fucking up and they have to go fix it. It creates a lot of friction. So when you try and build crews, make sure they have minimum experience, or at least know how to hold a friggin' broom.
I have a quick question for you before we move on to the next thing, because this was a requested episode, and one of them was how I would like you to word this is, let's say you have an entry level, a painter, and then a master painter. What is one question you think is important that you would ask the entry level painter, the painter, and then the master painter?
How much do you want to make?
What are your favorite ones? That's for all of them, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a question I would ask them. How much do you want to make? And they'd be like, for example, I was interviewing this guy. He's like, I want to make $40 an hour. I'm like, okay, why do you think you're worth $40 an hour? And let them talk. Why do you think I should pay you $40 an hour or $35 an hour or whatever? And let them talk. Like, why? Like, convince me. I'm like, I'm willing to pay it, but convince me, because
as long as the value is there.
As long as the value is there, I'll pay $100 an hour if you're making me double that. If you're producing double that. So I think that's a very important question that you need to ask the entry level. What was the other one?
The painter and the master painter.
Yeah. So you need to ask all of them. So that way you can see what their expectations are, because you need to understand what their expectations are. Or you need to understand their needs as well. Like, why are you painting? And then the master painter, which master painters usually are the higher skilled, they're like, oh, I have a family. I want to make minimum $10,000 a month. I want to make sure I provide for my kids. I have 3 kids. That's why it's important to ask them, how much do you want to make, and why you want to make that, and why should I pay you that? Those are 3 very important questions I need to ask all 3.
Perfect.
To get the sequence going, because they need to understand that you're there to meet their expectations as well, and you're there to provide for them. That's your responsibility as a business. But also they have to live up to the expectations. If you want to make $40 an hour, you have to be a $40 an hour painter. Even like the entry level painters, I have guys who come to me and then they have 2 years experience. They're like, oh, I want to make $25 an hour. I'm like, dude, I was a crew leader. I was running, how many guys I was running? 6 guys before we left the last job. 8 guys. I'm not counting my brother and my dad, obviously, but like 8 other guys on a job site. I'm like, okay. And I was not making $25 an hour. I was making 24. And then dad was making 23 and you're making 13.
I was doing the bitch work. That's why.
I'll be like, Carmelo, go hide in that closet over there, or go behind the building and just chill there, pretend that you're doing something. Carmelo had no experience at all painting in the beginning. Or I would just take him on the lift with me to like have him tell me jokes and stuff.
I was the jester of the crew. Yeah.
So, but yeah, you have to understand and I'm like, dude, I've been a painter myself. I run crews, I work for big companies, and I was not making $25 an hour. And I was spraying, I was running the crew, I was running the lifts, I was organizing the job site, I was doing material. I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, I need 20 more gallons and all that. So I'm like, can you do all that? And,
no.
They're like, no. I'm like, then you're not worth $25 an hour. I'm like, what can you do? They're like, yeah, I can brush and roll. I'm like, okay, then you're like a $20 an hour guy. I'm like, can you run a whole job site by yourself? Because once you go past 25, that's master painter and crew leader wages right there. So that's very important that you need to understand what their expectations are. And then you need to be like, hey, I need to see you. Like, for the first week, I'll pay you what you're asking. If they're good prospect that you think they can be a good fit. You'll be like, okay, on the interview for the first week, I'll pay you what you're asking. But if my crew leaders tell me that you suck, if they tell me this, we either have to renegotiate or we'll probably part ways. And then I make that very clear on the interview. because those guys, once I bring them on board, they're my responsibility. I have to make sure that I'm paying them what they're expected to get paid because their livelihood depends on it. And also their livelihood depends on it, then you're responsible for that as their employer. You have to make sure those guys can provide for their families or their bills and all that. So when you bring them on board, you also take on the responsibility to provide for those guys. You have to see it like that. They're like your kids. All your guys, all your organization team members, they're like your kids. You have to make sure they're fed. Um, and yeah, we put them on this trial period. Like, yeah, we'll pay you what you're asking. Show us what you can do. And then our crew leaders are phenomenal. I mean, not only our crew leaders, everybody like, okay, this guy sucks. He fucked up this. And then that's why it's good to have a good company culture. I think it's actually not a good thing. It's the most important thing because when you have a good company culture and SOPs that everybody follows the same quality, the same processes, when you get a bullshitter that can't fit in that,
Your organization will just weed them out.
exactly. It's very important. Like you don't even have to be there. Like me and Carmelo, when we bring somebody new on board and we put them on a crew, we don't have to be there to be like looking at them and like our crews, if they're a bullshitter, they'll weed them out really fast. They'll be like, hey, they'll call us like, dude, this guy fucked up this wall. It's not like they're bitching or like they're snitching on them. It's just like, hey, he's not a good fit for us. He won't, even if he's very cheap. Like let's say we pay him $10 an hour. They'll still be like, hey, this guy's not a good fit. He's creating more problems. He has to be constantly babysat. He's always on his phone. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's showing up late. Our organization will weed out the bad prospects right away within the first week because we're not bullshitters. And all our guys, they make good money. So they want to make sure nobody's interfering with the way that they make money.
Especially the ones that are performance pay and they're affecting their performance.
Exactly. That's why performance pay is very important. And it'll save you headaches. Also, it'll save you, oh, Carmelo, go work with this guy for 3 days to see how he works. We don't do that anymore. We don't have time to do that. That's why we put them on a crew. The crew is like, yeah, this guy's good. We like him. He's a good team member. Or like, this guy's an asshole. He sucks at painting.
Or he's good, but he swears a lot, or he has a big mouth.
Yeah, he has a big mouth, or like he said this. That's why it's important to have somebody that's a leader of the crew that keeps tabs on all that. And then, yeah, that's why you create a company culture that's going to weed out all the bad apples. So you don't have to be there holding their hand and watching every move. Because also, when they get hired, for example, they get hired by me and Carmelo, and then we're there, they're going to perform different than when me and Carmelo are not there. They're not going to show like how many times, if you're a painting company or a painting business owner, how many times you hired somebody and you were there working with them and they were a fucking killer. They were like putting extra effort. They were doing good. And then next thing you know, you put them on a job site that you're not there. And you start hearing like, okay, this guy fucks up here. He's not working as efficiently. He's not working as fast. He's cutting corners. He's doing this. He's doing that. So that's why it's important to like not be on top of them. That way you can get the true
image.
Like, who they are actually when they're not being overlooked by somebody. Also, how autonomous they are. Do they need constantly be told what to do? Or can they problem solve? Can they pick up on tasks? Can they do this? Can they do that? Because, for example, like it happened recent. Like our crew is like, dude, Redion, this guy is fucking driving me nuts, man. He finishes something and he comes and asks me what to do next. And then that was a $24 an hour guy. I'm like, oh, doesn't he know? Like we went through the process and like, yeah, every time he finishes something, he comes and asks me what to do next. So I had to talk to him like, dude, you have to be more autonomous. You have to know, like, you've been with us for 2 weeks now. You can't just be going to the crew leader and be like, hey, what should I do next? What should I do now? Just, it's not rocket science. It's painting. Just finish taping, get a cut pad, start cutting. It's like you don't have to be
standard deduction. Like, look what everyone else is doing. Look what needs to be done. And then if nobody's doing it, get on that.
Just pick on. Like, hey, guys, I'm going to take on cutting the lowers. I'm going to start cutting the uppers. So I'm going to sand all the repairs and spot prime them. Just be autonomous. That's why it's important for us for people who can think for themselves. And that's why we pay top dollar, because we want people who they can think of themselves. So we don't have to do the thinking. So we can do the thinking on other things that are more important. Okay. And then we have here reference and background. I don't really ask for references. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, did you work for so and so painting? Let me call your old boss. I'm not that kind of guy. Because a lot of times, like, even me, like, if you call my old boss, he'll tell you Radion was a jackass. He fucking left a week after we had a conflict and he started his own business. He's not going to give you the best things about me. Uh,
It's good to just have the
yeah.
work history,
Yeah.
I'd
Just the
say.
work history. Like, because a lot of times these guys will leave because their boss was not good. Like me, we said in previous episodes, we left our old job to start Olympian because we're not happy. We're not being treated right, not compensated right. The guy was a good guy, but he was just like not a business owner. And it's those are and when you leave someone like me, I was very hot headed when I was young. So I was like, "Fuck this! I'm out of it. I'm gonna go do my own thing. This motherfucker is wasting my time." Uh, he probably wouldn't have the best things to say about me. So that's why I don't really call up old companies and be like, hey, how's this guy? No. I can tell how's this guy by the way he shows up, by the way he talks to me, and by the way he performs on the field. But we do background checks. We don't I think it's very important, especially when you're working in high-end homes, how we do, or any home. You want to make sure the guy hasn't been in jail for fucking bank robbery or something like that.
Yeah.
Like you have to like, or doesn't have any drug charges. He wasn't slinging dope 2 years ago, and now he's trying to change his life path. And I know a lot of people change, but again, we want to eliminate as much risk as possible, and we want to calculate the risk when we put painters in people's houses. It's very important because again, it's not about the money, it's about our brand. Our brand cannot take a hit. Like we'd rather lose money than our brand take a hit. Like
Yeah.
Carmelo said in the past too.
Especially in the painting industry, there's a bad stigma of, having the bad image painter show up, the one that,
Yeah,
smells,
the
cusses.
crackhead that fucking
So,
drinks Mountain
yeah.
Dew and smokes 26 a minute. Yeah,
So there's a bad stigma
that's
over there.
that's the stigma of the painters, and that's transitioning and switching now. The more like younger generation of business owners are kidding, but when you think of the painter, you don't think of somebody that's clean cut, and I don't know, just the stigma.
That's as far as references and backgrounds goes.
Yeah.
Incentivization strategies. What incentivization strategies do we implement that we've already discussed in this episode?
I'm gonna say one thing. Don't be the business owner. Like, don't be a Karen and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna call your old boss and see how you were with him." Don't do that. I don't think you need to be asking for references. Study enough and learn enough about people that you can pick up if he's a good person or not. Number one, because if they're not a good person, we don't want them within our organization. We thrive into working with good people, and just do a normal background check. I mean, make sure they're not convicted criminal or something. Again, I know people change, but we want to calculate and mitigate risk as much as we can, especially when we're painting $5-10 million houses. Because like the you know who I'm talking about. We
Yeah.
go in there in his closet and he has like $3-4 million worth of watches, and he trusts us to paint in his closet, and we see that watch. It doesn't take much for a bad person to just grab a watch, fucking $40,000-50,000 watch. That's his whole year's salary. So those are the things that because people trust us in their homes. Every home we go, like they'll leave us in their houses. They'll leave. Like the one we're starting in July, the guy's gonna leave in an 11,000 square feet home, mansion. Like I'm sure he has a lot of expensive things. He trusts the organization to take care of his home, his belongings, everything. And it's not only about picking up that watch, it's about breaking his expensive art. uh I don't know, like getting paint on his expensive paintings,
Or shoes.
or like some of the houses that we go to, they have like $100,000 couch. It's fucking nuts. Or like a fucking $100,000 rug. I'm like, those guys trust us in their houses, so we have to make sure the people that we bring into their houses, they understand. They treat them better than they would treat their own houses, because I don't have a $100,000 rug in my house, or I don't have a $100,000 couch, or I don't have $1 million painting. So I need to make sure that I go the extra mile, the extra step to protect that. And like we need to make sure those people, the team members of our organization, they understand that as well. All right, thanks. I can't even say that word.
Incentivization strategies. We already talked about performance pay.
All right.
So that's an opportunity for growth for all of our people within our organization.
Yes. So
Bonuses too.
when you have hourly employees, they're like your kids, literally. Even when they fuck up, you have to still pay them. Even when they mess something up, they break it, they still have to get their 40 hours because when you hire them as an hourly employee, they're exchanging their time for money. They're not exchanging performance for money. And they're your responsibility. Like in the beginning, when we had only hourly employees, they were exchanging their time. So they were expecting every Friday 40-hour check to hit their bank. They were basing their livelihood with that, which you have to keep in mind. That's your responsibility as a business owner. When you have hourly employees, no matter how they perform, no matter what, when you agree to pay them $25 an hour, you have to pay them that no matter what, even when you lose money. That's very important, which is not a good scalable model for painting, at least in our personal opinion. When you have performance pay, when you pay people per job, when you pay, for example, when you pay people per cabinet door, per cabinet drawer, the more they bring to the table, the more they're willing to have a van, have their own sprayer, do their own things. The more they're willing to put into the business, they need to have an incentive of like, hey, the more I do for this business, the more money I'll make. And also that way they pick up more responsibility and they start caring more. Because when you have performance pay, the pocket takes a hit when they fuck up. If they fuck up a kitchen cabinet and we have to redo it, they have to do it twice now. And they're only getting paid to do it one time. Versus when an hourly employee fucks up a kitchen cabinet job, if you have to have him fix it, you have to pay him again for his hours because he's exchanging time for money. Uh, that's how we switched our model, and it's working out phenomenally because the hourly employee was we're taking a lot of hits.
Yeah,
Like,
because
we're-
performance pay it makes them accountable. Because an hourly employee, and in the past we've had that. Oh, they mess up. They're like, oh, Carmelo will fix it. Redion will fix it.
or they'll just go back and fix it
Or
themselves,
yeah,
do touch ups for 4 hours. I still have to pay them for
uh,
those 4 hours. So when you scale and you're running multiple crews hourly, you're gonna start bleeding money, which you don't want to. That's why performance pay, incentives, bonuses, like, hey guys, if you knock out this job, I'll be able to pay you more, good quality, all these things. We want our team members to start taking accountability and responsibility. And also, we want our team members to be rewarded when we get rewarded, right? Because when you're hourly and I'm making a killing that job site, I might just give you gas money and give you a bonus. But when you performance pay, if I make a killing in this job, you'll make a killing in this job too. And we want those people. So we want people who are willing to take the hits, and we want people who are willing to share the rewards when everything is running smooth and flawlessly. And I think that transitions well. Like having a good pay structure is going to increase the retention as well. So we have here retention techniques. Number one, positive work environment. We cannot have toxic people that create drama. Like, for example, I'll give an example. In the beginning, we had this guy. Every day he would come in. I'm like, hey, how are you? Like everybody's positive, and you're like, oh, just another day in paradise. I'm like, dude, you're fucking living in Florida. It's 80 and sunny out in January. I'm like, be a little bit cheerful, man. What the fuck? And every day he'd be like, oh, just another day. I'm like, dude, do you even want to be here? I remember having a conversation. I'm like, do you even want to fucking be here, man? And he's like, yeah, man, I just fucking hate painting. I'm like, then what the fuck are you here? And that guy would bring the crews down. All our guys like, oh my god, this guy's so fucking miserable. And those guys will bring the energy of the crew down. You don't want to have those guys. That's why you have a positive work environment. Everybody gets along. Everybody's happy to go to work. Because if like like when we're working again, I'll use myself as an example. When I would go to these jobs and we would be there, and I had fucking crackheads there, miserable. Somebody going to his car smoking weed in the like at lunchtime, talking shit all the time, being miserable, hating their lives. I started being miserable myself. I'm like, holy shit. I
it
remember
rubs off.
I'm like, what the fuck? I'm sad for no reason. Just because I was around that environment. I was like, fuck these guys, man. Fucking bunch of losers. So you don't want those kind of people. You don't want fucking negative people anywhere, especially within your crews, because they'll bring the whole team down. I've seen it happen, and shit, it happened to me. I was being in shitty crews, and I'll be sad for no fucking reason because they were bums. Uh, Foster a collaborative and inclusive culture. Yeah, like we said, everybody needs to be included. If the organization is making money, everybody needs to be making money. When the organization is taking a hit, they're taking a hit too. So it has to go both ways. It cannot only go one way. And obviously, ensure a safe and well-equipped work environment. Like number one thing I say to everybody: safety first, especially when we're working on exteriors. I don't care. I don't want to do crazy stuff. I'm like, if it's not safe, we're not going up on a ladder. If it's not safe, we're not doing it. We're gonna figure out a way to make it safe, and then we go up. And like, like in the beginning when I started the business, I would do some crazy shit. I would put like ladders on top of fucking blocks, and I was like, okay, but I would never make one of my guys go up on those ladders. Never, ever. I'll be like, I'm going up on that ladder. If I fall, I'm the one falling. So, but for my guys, I always, if we can get to it safely, we're not doing it. It's point blank. That's a non-negotiable. Safety first, always. And then open communication, maintaining transparent communication channels between management and employees. Always. That's the most important thing. Just be open and transparent with your guys. The crew leaders need to be transparent with their guys that they're leading, all that. About the money, about the job cost, about when we're exceeding material cost, about when we're making money, about how much we're gonna make. All that needs to be open, especially when it's performance pay. Like, hey guys, we run out of margins. This business, to keep the lights on, it has to make a certain amount. They need to know those things, because then they hold themselves accountable as well. Like this, the shop won't pay for itself. Our insurance won't pay for itself. All this won't pay for itself. We have to make sure we're hitting certain metrics so for everybody to be happy. Otherwise, if we're losing money, then we might just well shut it down. So yeah. And I think being open and transparent is very important. Like, don't be a liar, man. Just, if something happens, just say it how it is. Don't fucking try to wick around, because if you, like, my mom said this quote, your lie will come out eventually. And it's so true. If you lie now and you think you got away with it, down the road, your lie will show up. And we had multiple instances that was true. Like somebody lied, they think they got away with it. And then down the road, I'm like, oh, wow, you told me this. What the fuck happened now? So be open and transparent, even when things go wrong. It's okay. We're a team. We figure things out together. That's why it's not just you. It's a team. All of us. We'll take a hit. We'll make money together. We'll figure solutions. We'll deal with issues. But just honesty is very important. And we make sure, even if we bring new guys, and we also reinforce it every so on. Like, hey guys, I know this job, we fucked it. We didn't make any money, but we did right by the customer. This is what went wrong. We have to audit ourselves. Not only ourselves, but like the crews, the painters, like, hey, this went wrong. Let's make sure this doesn't happen again. And I think that's like a good retention technique too. You're not the guy you're like, oh, you fucking dumbass, you fuck this, you fuck that, like you loser. It's good to like take a different approach and like, hey guys, this happened. It was not good. We lost money. The customer was not happy. What can we do to fix it? That's the approach you want to take. You can't be like the old school guys that like the fucking yell at people. I'm like,
if you want to retain those employees, you don't do that.
Yeah. I remember a lot of times back in my day, fucking knocked out fucking George.
That's an old you.
Yeah. I'm like,
that was pretty old.
That's how I learned how to treat people. Like, treat people how you want to be treated. Don't be an asshole to your employees. Don't be an asshole to your crew leaders. Like, just be a good person. Just be a good human being. And then work-life balance. When we started, we used to like not have balance at all. Like, we'll put 14 hours and we'll be like, oh yeah, guys, we'll pay you more. Just let's work harder. We'll pay you bonuses. And then those guys past 8 hours, even if you're making a killing, past 8 hours, your efficiency and your capacity just drops. You have to schedule everything to be done within 8-hour workday. You cannot overwork people, because everybody wants to make a lot of money. I know, but once you overwork people, then that's when fuck-ups start happening. Efficiency drops, mishaps happen. And then when you have to show up for work the next day and you just put 12 hours today and then you have to do it again tomorrow, you get your morale drops. You get
burned out.
You get burned out.
Like,
no matter how much money you're making, you're gonna get burned out. So that's why we encourage our guys, like, hey, make sure we're efficient within those 8 hours of the day. Because we still have to, like, you want to go to the gym, you want to spend time with your kids, you want to do all these things. Because having a good work-life balance, it's very vital to be efficient and produce more. And then accommodate personal commitment when needed. Like, yeah, we're not going to be like, oh, you can't fucking go to your kid's graduation, or you can't, like, No, obviously, like we said, be a decent human being. Like if they have a doctor's appointment, a family emergency, like if somebody calls, like, yeah, man, my uncle is sick and all that, I have to go. I'm like, obviously, dude, don't worry about work. We'll make it happen. If it's a legit
Reason,
thing,
yeah.
we'll accommodate. Again, that's why we're a team. We have your back no matter what.
And then I have an example for this. If it's a good reason, just like you said, and then the thing that you said before that, which is what our mom says, a lie will always come up because we've had people in the past that taken advantage of our kindness that way.
Yeah.
But we're still kind about that and understanding. They say, "Oh yeah, my dad's dying," and then a year later, yeah, my dad's about to die or whatever, and then a year later, his dad is like doing good.
Yeah, flourishing.
He was never sick or
just
whatever.
bought a fucking new Hellcat and just chilling. I'm like, God,
Bro,
dude,
what happened?
What happened? I thought your dad was dying. And he's like,
Oh yeah, actually I had to do something.
Well, guys, yeah, don't be like that. Oh my God, I don't even want to talk about that story right now because we're running out of time. But anyways, yeah, don't lie because eventually we'll find out. Yeah, career pathways. We talked about work-life balance, and yeah, give your career pathways. Give your team members ways to grow within your organization. Don't cap them. That's very important. Whoever is within your organization, you let them know, hey, the more you put into this, the more you can grow. I don't put a cap on your ceiling. I don't want you to be the helper for $20 an hour. I want you to be a crew leader. I want you to be running your own jobs. If you're good at it, I want you to sell. Like, I want you to grow within the organization. So give them the roadmap, especially when you have good candidates that they're eager to learn, grow. Give them the roadmap and give them the opportunities to grow.
Yeah, and you find out what they want out of this job from the first question that you asked them initially on the interview process. So you get a good idea of this. And also, like, if they want to be eventually a salesperson, like either one of your salespeople or you yourself, offer them mentoring because the better they do, the better your organization will do.
Exactly.
It's an investment you have to make if that's what they're looking to do.
Yeah, I love making crew leader salespeople because the best person to sell jobs for painting is the person who understands painting or who was a painter before. So I tell my crew leaders, I'm like, hey, if you think you can sell jobs, I would love for you to be a salesperson so you can make an extra commission on that and run your own crew on your own job sites. Those are the best team members to have. And then, yeah, support professional development. Give your people opportunities to grow. That's something that me and Karmelo never had working for other painting companies. And we were very hungry in the beginning. Like now we're still hungry, but not how we were when we're fucking broke. Like any opportunity that those guys would have given us, would have fucking taken to the moon. So, and none of them gave us those opportunities.
Yeah. And by supporting professional development, because again, a few of our salespeople, they want to go to this, what is it called? Like BNI or basically business networking.
Yeah, whatever they want.
And they have their membership and they're like, yeah, it's going to be this much for this much. Okay. If you think like that's going to work,
yeah,
I'll pay for it.
Invest in your people. That's it. To wrap this up, you have to have a good pricing method to find good candidates and recruit good talent. You have to write your ads, right? And then you have to incentivize and have a good price structure to retain those guys that you're going to get. Because a killer that you're going to bring on your organization, if he doesn't have incentives to stay with your organization, he's going to go somewhere else. And you want to retain those good killers that they can help your organization grow to the next level. It might be a painter. A painter, you keep paying him more, give him bonuses, give him whatever. But incentivize those people to stay and create a good environment for them and then make sure those people earn and they make money. So if you're making money, make sure everybody else is making money. Very important. And we have a whole hiring course that we offer to people who are doing more than $500,000 a year and they're trying to recruit top talent. Send me a message for more information on that. It's 8 hours of content. We sit down, we do one-on-one coaching on how to build all these systems, how to build all the scripts for hiring painters, hiring subcontractors, hiring crews, hiring salespeople, project managers. We have everything broken down into a nice course that you can take it and implement it and copy paste it pretty much within your organization. That works for us phenomenally. Do you have anything else to add?
I would say one more thing. This is for the retention rate for everybody right now listening, but depending on the level of each of your employees, I would say offer them in a few like decision-making choices. Like, let's say if you have a helper, like, hey, how do you think we should lay the paper over here? Just make them be a little bit active and feel like they're involved in the process. Or, hey, if they say the wrong decision or the wrong choice, you basically tell them, like, yeah, what if you go this way? And then try to veer them into the right direction. Make them engaged. Don't just, okay, do this.
Yeah, no, we're never like that.
There's
Never.
more room for growth that way when you ask for their opinion. Okay.
Absolutely. Ask for their opinion. Yeah. Or like the one thing I do, like, oh, how many gallons do you think we'll need of this? I already
That's
know
also-
how many fucking gallons we'll need. I've been doing this for 11 years now.
That's also very important. That
so
I like to ask.
I still give my guys like, yeah, what do you think? How do you think we should attack this? Make them feel involved.
Very important.
Or maybe that day I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know how many gallons I need. Maybe I overestimated because I'm not always right. So it's make everybody feel involved. Even with the sales rep, like, hey, do you think there's a better way to approach those leads? There's a better way to engagement. Everybody needs to be involved in your organization. Everybody needs to have a saying on how we can make things better, how we can deliver customers a better quality product, faster, efficient. How can we offer a longer warranty? All these things, everybody has to have input. I think that this is a wrap.
Yeah, I think we pretty much
I
wrapped
think we
up.
covered everything. Yeah. If you have more questions, send us a message. Like we said, we have a whole hiring and training and system that you guys can implement for your business. This will wrap up this episode of the Dirty Painters podcast.
Be sure to follow our business on Instagram at Olympian Painting and also our personal pages, Olympian_Redion and Olympian_Karmelo. And always keep up with the Dirty Painters podcast.
If you like this episode, be sure to share with a fellow painter or tradie. Until next time, this is Redion.
And I'm Karmelo.
Signing off from the Dirty Painters podcast. Thank you, guys.